the world in which we live is evolving so quickly, and sometimes it can take our our consciousness a little bit longer just to kind of catch up and be able to set the boundaries that traditionally we weren't raised to have to be aware of. And what I'm talking about here are boundaries, personal boundaries, and particularly when it comes to social media. Because we have access to social media and so many different platforms now, and in particular, like just on our phones, those boundaries now of where perhaps, we wouldn't invite certain conversations into our space. We pick and choose our friends because we enjoy the conversations that we're having with them. Yeah. But now it can be a little bit trickier unless we set those boundaries to define the conversations that we want to expose ourselves to. And also, what part of our lives that those conversations, that subject matter is exposing itself within our lives. So I think it's so important for us to consciously set social media boundaries. And as I've said in an earlier episode, the tricky thing with social media is it comes immediately into our homes. We invite it into our lounge rooms, onto our dining tables, and also into our bedrooms. And when you think about how you're exposing yourself in those environments to anything from the external world that happens to be on social media, that is an area that I say is fundamentally like the foundations of importance to set boundaries around. So, have you set boundaries with your social media, or do you just find that you're getting caught up consuming it consistently, right? Because I think, everyone's been guilty of getting lost. I call it lost in the land of face, where you jump on with an intention, and the next thing you know, the time has just completely disappeared, and you spent hours just scrolling through. You've watched a couple of funny dog videos or babies or cats, whatever it is, and next thing you know, you're like, holy smokes, I've completely forgotten the intention and the purpose as to why I was here. Yeah. One of the other things is we also can easily get caught up in the comparison game. We're watching other people's photos and we're comparing. It's part of our wiring that we do that. So this is why it's really important that we are consciously able to catch ourselves when we're doing that. And if you would step back into our own lane, and make sure that you're living your life and not comparing yourself to others. And particularly now that we have things like Photoshop and so many filters, etc. And making sure that you're staying in your lane. So some of the parameters and the boundaries that I really like to set with social media is, first of all, the content that I consume aligns with who I am. So when I'm consuming the content, if you would, right, just scrolling through, reading posts or whatever, anything that is on my feed is always positive. And there's a lot of people that become stuck being loyal to something that doesn't serve them. Yeah. And there are so many different ways that you can set those healthy boundaries and parameters without, being offensive to someone or anything along those lines. Myself, coming from a background working with animals, a lot of the time I used to, be tagged or shared or like have things come up on my Facebook feed that, involved, animal cruelty or just sad things that happen in the animal world. And I'm like, that doesn't serve me in my home. Like, I've worked in the animal welfare sector, and that destroyed me for a little while. Suffered from compassion fatigue. My husband says it took me 2 years to bounce back. The difference is when you're working in an environment like that, ideally, not necessarily, in reality, but ideally when you leave that environment, when you leave your work, you should be leaving work at work. Social media has the ability to violate boundaries and come into your home. And the only reason, and this works for other people as well, a lot of the time, the only reason why we are aware that our boundaries have been crossed is because it starts to feel icky. And that a lot of the time is because we originally never set our boundaries. We weren't consciously aware of where our boundaries were in order to set them. A lot of the time, you only know that your boundaries have been crossed because you get that icky feeling. And inadvertently, it's because you allowed those boundaries to be crossed because you weren't consciously aware of where they are. So to bring this back into some of the things that I was seeing on my social media feed, you know, there's a little arrow there. I clicked it and I said, I don't want to see this post. Yeah? I don't want to see the cruelty of things. I don't want to see things that don't serve me, that don't make me feel good in my home environment, particularly. I mean, I don't want them in my space at all. It doesn't mean that I ignore it. It doesn't mean that I don't know that it's happening. It doesn't mean that I don't take action where I can in order to serve. But it's not going to help me or anybody else, all those animals, if I sit in a place and feel stuck and feel emotionally heavy and kind of dragged down by that. So what posts are coming up on your feeds? Are they serving you, and are they helping you move forward and evolve in your own life? So, you know, don't be afraid to use the things that are already in place on Facebook, on social media, where you can sit there and say, hey, I don't want to see this post because it's not relevant. Yeah? The other thing as well is, if you find that you're getting caught up in the comparison game, so whether that's a visual comparison game that somebody, you know, looks the way that you feel that you want to look, whether it's the business comparison game that you feel as though somebody's having the success that you really want, yeah, you can snooze them. Sorry, you can snooze those people on Facebook for 30 days. Okay, you can still go in and find them. This is not an unfriending. This is not anything like this. You need to look after yourself first. So if you're playing a comparison game, why not utilize the snooze? You can snooze someone for 30 days. And then that way, if you are on social media, yeah, you can stay in your own lane and focus on the things that you're wanting to do, to focus on, to grow and develop, opposed to getting sucked down that rabbit hole of comparison. Because comparison is a game that you will never, ever win. And again, that comes from our subconscious mind because we're always looking externally for the answers. Those answers are within you. And if you set clear boundaries and parameters, that is when you can really start to tap into that space. So the snooze button is amazing if you find that you're getting caught up within that realm. You can still search your friends or search someone that you find inspirational, right? You can still follow them. It just puts them on hold for a little bit so you can look after yourself. It's the same as when you're in an airplane and they say, if by chance there's an emergency, please put your own oxygen mask on first, so therefore you can serve others. There's no point not putting your oxygen mask on, not looking after yourself, so you pass out, then you can't serve the people around you. Look after yourself first. Fill your own cup. Fill it so full that it overflows. And from that overflow, that is how you can serve others, look after others. Unfortunately, we're not taught emotional intelligence, in the traditional schooling system. If we were taught that, we would understand that we need to look after ourselves and our own emotions in order to be the best that we can be. So what are the boundaries and parameters that you're going to put into place? I'd love to hear. Please pop them in the comments and, share so you can inspire other women. This is not a game of scarcity, this life. Yeah, if we come together as a community, we're a hell of a lot stronger. Yeah, we share and we contribute to each other. That is what our hearts desire. We want to feel safe. We want a community in which we can connect with. So I really invite you to do that. What boundaries are you going to implement with your social media? It may be that social media is not a place that you're going to welcome into your bed. Okay, so when you're jumping into bed at night, maybe social media isn't the space for you to be in at that time. It may be in the morning. Maybe you're not going to have social media in bed in the morning. All right? You may sit there and go from Monday through to Saturday. Social media is not going to be there, but Sunday morning, sleep in. Cool, that's okay. Yeah. Do we sit there and say no social media when you're at the dining table? It might be when you're in the bath and you've got, bubbles and beautiful aromas and all of that kind of thing happening. Yeah. What are the boundaries that you're going to put into place? Are you going to, let social media know if they're putting advertisements or information that is a bit of a parasite in your life because it's just sucking your energy? Right? So I'm not referring to individuals. I'm referring to the energy it's taking from you. Are you going to utilize the feedback where you can say, this is not relevant, I don't want to see this? And if you're playing the comparison game, can you hit that snooze button? Right? And once you've done that, keep looking within. Everything that you need right now is already within you. You just need to take the time to check in, to tap into that space, because we are conditioned to always look externally for the answers. That's the traditional education system. Go external. Look elsewhere. Yeah, when was the last time you spent 5 minutes with yourself? And sitting still, I'm quite an active person. Sitting still was quite challenging for me to start off with. Yeah, I used to set the alarm on my phone, set it for 5 minutes and go, you have to sit here and be still for 5 minutes. And it didn't matter if I was doing my meditation. It didn't matter if I was just listening to the birds. I'm an absolute advocate of outdoors. I love it. It's where our life force is. But sit and be still for 5 minutes, and training the mind to be still, because it likes to race. It likes to compare. It likes to, what do I need? What else do I need to do? It likes to remind us of the false belief that we don't have enough time. That is a false belief. It's the same as if you don't stop to fuel up your car and put fuel in your car, it will stop. Yeah. So this belief of not having enough time, it's not true. Yeah. And the more you focus on not having enough time, you're not going to have enough time. So stop, sit still for 5 minutes with no social media. Yeah. The irony of this, our mobile phones were invented in order to allow us to have more time. Yeah. But now what it does is it allows us to bring our work everywhere with us. And social media is a massive part of that. And I love social media. It's such a beautiful way to connect. But what we want to make sure is that we're setting some beautiful, healthy boundaries around that space so you can grow and prosper and really start to live your life, opposed to just going through the motions because you haven't taken the time to be consciously aware. Guys, I'd love to know what boundaries you're putting into place. Any tips, any hacks that you have in regards to boundaries and social media. That would be amazing. Pop them in the comments below, and I look forward to reading them.